I, 41M, have 2 kids with my ex-wife, 42F, a son John 22 and daughter Sally, 20, I'm remarried to my wife, 28. I'm very close with my kids, my son is engaged to Abby, she seems nice but has been a bit pushy trying to create relationships with me and my wife, though she's also awkward with her. Abby isn't close to her family, she told us many stories why, and while some of her complaints don't seem awful, it's not my place to judge and I didn't live it so I can't know anyway. We've tried to be welcoming but Abby has forced her way into some family traditions where she wouldn't have been invited, and some where no one outside of specific family would have. She has been calling Sally sis since they were only dating a few months, has an odd sister/mother-in-law thing she does with my wife, and the one I'm not a fan of, wants me to be like father to her. Not because we've clicked or anything. We are very different people, not saying that in a bad way, just saying it's not based on how we get along or anything. My kids and I have a tradition when they come over that we have a private catch-up in my office/study before they leave, which is now even more important to them because while they both get along well with my wife they don't want to have personal conversations around her yet. Abby asked if we could talk, and after I explained the tradition John later asked that I do it, saying she'd never had a caring conversation with her dad. We compromised that I didn't include her in the tradition but do join the 2 of them for coffee and let her talk. Then she started calling me dad, they weren't even engaged yet, John pulled me aside and begged me to give her that, laid this whole thing on me about me always being the dad she always wanted right in front of her and she just wanted that, told me she cried watching me and Sally together, she still gives me random hugs, I'm a lucky dad. I didn't like it but I do feel bad so fine I gave her that. She wants me to walk her down the aisle and the father/daughter dance. I don't want to walk her down, and I walk with a cane so dancing is hard. At my own wedding I only danced twice. John is begging for me to do one, preferably the aisle. They came over Sunday, John and I were talking, I thought to address it, when Ab walked in without knocking, asking if he'd told me yet. I asked what. John said she wanted me to say something about having a second daughter now in my speech and how I loved her. I just looked at him. She asked if I'd do the walk and dance for Sally, I said of course. She yelled she's my daughter too and I said it will never be the same, Sally is my actual daughter. I tried to explain I'd talk about her being a happy addition to the family and I love how happy she makes Jack, which I thought was a good compromise, but she started crying. John apologized and they left, but he called me when they were home nearly begging me to. Comment 1. NTA, there are obviously several red flags Abby which John has chosen to ignore. However, it's unfair of him to expect that you and the rest of your family should be required to cater to her irrational whims and behavior. Abby is obviously manipulative, likes being the center of attention, and feels entitled to have everything her way. The only way to deal with people like her is to set boundaries and stick to them. Otherwise, Abby will walk all over you and your family. Comment 2. NTA. Abby has some serious emotional issues that John is enabling. She needs therapy, stat. Her inserting herself into your family like this waves a bunch of red flags. I get she's not close to her own family but she has no right to insist or change the dynamic of your family at her whim. She must earn this recognition. It doesn't just happen because she wants it. Someday, you may think of her as a daughter but she has a boatload of maturing to do beforehand. Stick to your guns. Don't lie. You don't need to. Comment 3. She yelled she's my daughter too. Abby sounds seriously unhinged. I understand her wanting a family, but she's trying to force relationships that are not there. She's not letting them develop naturally, normally. If your son is supporting this, he is not helping her. She's going to cause resentment and distance between herself and your family and then cry to John about how mean you all are. You are NTA for not wanting to go along with her delusions. Good luck dealing with her in your family. If she doesn't see anything wrong with her pushing and manipulating, this will never end. I, 27F, had plans to go out to dinner with my sister, 30F, as we do every month. She lives in my hometown and I live in the next state over with my BF, We're about 35 minutes to an hour apart depending on traffic. We agreed to meet closer to hometown with my mom. One thing about her, she is always late. I expect she'll always be at least 30 minutes late, but it's been up to a few hours. And not just random plans, weddings and graduations too. It's been brought up in the past by Mom and I, but she always brushes it off and gets upset. My BF drove me over. I can't drive, and he offered to drop me before he had to head out for plans of his own near home and come back when he was done. I assumed after dinner we would just hang out at her house either way. Get to the place and start calling my sister. She usually doesn't say if she's gonna be late, but if my mom is with her she does, and I hadn't heard anything. I get Mom a few minutes later and she says they're behind because it took a while to get my nephew, who's almost one, ready, and my sister got in the shower later than expected. I didn't even know my nephew was coming, and she usually tells me if he is. Her husband was apparently there to let Mom in when she showed up, but went back to sleep as soon as she got there. Not sure why he couldn't help get baby ready, but that's none of my business. I check maps and it says 35 minutes, adding in getting baby strapped and secure and then putting him in either the stroller or front carrier on her body. I was looking at 40 minutes to top it off. We had reservations. She made the reservation, not me. I had never been to this place and didn't know if it was one of those places that don't let you have the table if your whole group isn't there. There was really no space to wait inside and I'd have to stand outside. Anyway, I didn't feel like sitting alone for 40 minutes even if I could. She doesn't keep her friends waiting this long when they make plans. I don't get why it's okay to do this to me and Mom. I'm speaking to Mom as they're trying to change the reservation online. At that point I was fed up. If we agree to be there at a certain time, be there. 5 or 10 minutes late is fine, but not this. I told Mom I was going back home. I didn't feel like fuming at the table and acting like I wasn't mad when they got there, as I'd done before. She sounded hurt and mad but said fine and that she would go home too. Since then I haven't spoken to my sister. It's been a few weeks, and Mom doesn't want to get in the middle, but I told her I wasn't speaking to her until I get an apology. Mom told her she can't keep doing this on their ride back home and agrees it's an issue, but won't say much else. It's ridiculous to just always be late because you're bad at time management. She also wants to use the "it takes long to get a baby ready" excuse, which I would accept if it wasn't for the fact that this has been a problem long before my nephew was born or even a thought. Comment 1. NTA. Habitual, unforced lateness is rude and inconsiderate of others. There is nothing you can do to make your sister arrive on time. All you can do is decide whether you are willing to wait or would prefer to go, then do what you want. The best thing might be to set a boundary. I will wait for you for 20 minutes, or whatever, and then I will leave. But then you have to be consistent about following your own rule. Otherwise all your words and complaints are empty. Comment 2. NTA. Honestly, I would have stopped agreeing to an outside date with her a long time ago. If I have to wait, it better be somewhere comfortable, otherwise I won't go. My late limit is 15 minutes, which I already find to be quite generous. Comment 3. 15 minutes is perfect, as it allows for normal delays. And if someone is going to be late for reasons beyond their control, say, being stuck in traffic because of an accident on the freeway, well, that's what cell phones are for. I'm moving to another city for work. Since I'm an adult and not a college kid, I hired movers. My parents insisted on coming down to help me pack up. I live in their basement suite. It was cheap and they let me have my privacy. They brought my brother and my nephew. The 4 of them were as helpful as a bag of used horse condoms. Especially my nephew. My parents decided to keep him busy by giving him one of my Lego sets to play with. I collect them. What I usually do is buy 2 of the same one. I build one, put it up for display and leave the other one in the box to trade or sell. He took it upstairs to stay out of the way, then he took it home. All I noticed is that he was out from underfoot. The next day I saw the box on the garbage. I didn't assume. I knew the answer already, but I didn't assume. I went upstairs to talk to them. I asked where the Lego box came from. They said they gave it to Travis to keep him busy. I told them that they needed to replace it. They said I was being childish for caring so much about a toy. I said they could replace it or I would file an insurance claim, and that would probably require a police report. My dad got angry. He pulled out $70 and told me I was an asshole for making a fuss over a toy. I asked him if that was a down payment. He said that is what he spent on the last Lego gift he got me for Christmas, and that is what those helmets cost. I showed him the box. I told him to keep his money. He just had to give me a sealed box like the one he stole. He said he didn't steal anything. He took the box and went to the Lego store nearby. When he came back, he was apologetic. He said he would get it back from my nephew. I said I wanted a sealed box with the TIE Fighter helmet. I even went on eBay to help him find one cheaper than he had found by himself at the collectibles store the guy at the Lego store sent him to. With shipping it would only be $300. He ordered it. He isn't happy about it. My mom is upset that I'm expecting that much money for a toy. My dad is upset that I didn't explain before he went and made a fool of himself at the store. I'm upset that they stole from me. Comment 1. NTA. They had no business giving away your property. They need to consider themselves lucky they didn't give away something with a really wild collector's value. That $300 is a cheap learning experience. Comment 2. NTA. You handled this beautifully. You held your ground and created a situation in which your dad had to figure out for himself how badly he messed up. His irritation now is his embarrassment at having screwed up. It's okay to let him learn that lesson. I'm sure he'll never make this mistake again. Ignore his posturing. Comment 3. NTA. Your parents clearly crossed a boundary by not respecting your belongings. Regardless of their perception of what is or isn't valuable or age-appropriate, it was yours and not theirs to give away. They need to understand that personal property doesn't lose its significance just because they don't see its worth. Plus, making them replace it might just teach them to respect other people's belongings in the future. My 26F sister, 32F, Bethy and I are both stay-at-home moms. I have one F twins, she has 3 sons, 6M, 4M, and 2M. My husband, Michael, is a master plumber who makes excellent money. He owns his own business, and I couldn't be prouder of him. I used to be a librarian. I have my MLS and bachelor's in education. During the birth of our girls, on the way to the hospital in the ambulance, we hit a speed bump, and I was injured. I am now an ambulatory wheelchair user and attend physical therapy, as I am learning to walk again. I hurt from my hips down, but my babies are worth it. We decided I would be a stay-at-home mom after my first surgery, and my husband gives me $3,000 per month to use how I want to. As payment for being such a good mom, we are extraordinarily blessed financially, and I'm happy being able to see my girls growing up. Bethy's husband, Jackson, is an elementary school teacher, but teaching doesn't pay much in our state. Bethy has been a stay-at-home mom for the entirety of her marriage and is used to having to scrimp and save for things. She asked me out for coffee recently and I accepted. I was chatting with her when I mentioned that our girls would start baby swim classes soon. I was happy the pool was wheelchair accessible. Bethy started ranting about how expensive swimming lessons are and how she could never afford to put her boys in swimming. I said I was also excited about playgroup this week, as I had been nervous to go the first time we had gone because none of the other moms and dads in the group used mobility aids. When I mentioned the name of the playgroup I go to with my girls, Bethy became angry because it's one of the more expensive playgroups. She was angry because I knew money was tight. And I didn't even think to invite her and Jackson's son because then she wouldn't have to pay for daycare. She then asked if my husband gave me an allowance. She was a bit angry, and people were starting to stare, so I said yes and asked her to keep her voice down. She wondered how much it was, and I told her. She asked if I could give it to her, and I told her no because I like to treat myself after my physio appointments, and I want to save as much as possible for a rainy day fund. Bethy said she and her husband have nothing but rainy days and left the restaurant without paying. I feel embarrassed and ashamed that I'm not helping her when I know I could. Still, when I asked Michael, he said that my sister could get a job and reminded me that I became a ZAM because it was something we agreed we were financially stable enough to do, as well as because of my mobility limitations. He also said I deserve nice things and shouldn't have to give them up just because my sister wants me to. I feel conflicted. If more people think I am, I'll consider giving her the monthly payment. I feel guilty for not helping. Comment 1. NTA except for discussing your allowance with her. The fact and the amount are none of her business. You shouldn't be subsidizing your sister. It's not that they're in desperate need, it's just that she'd like to have more. Their financial circumstances follow from their choices. Her husband pursued the satisfaction of teaching over something that pays better. She chose the satisfaction of staying home instead of working. They both chose to have 3 children. Choices have consequences. She was satisfied with those choices until she compared herself to you. If she's no longer content, a paying job would bring in more than your allowance. Comment 2. NTA. You have no obligation to support someone else's family. They didn't have to bring children into the world that they cannot afford. Question: does your sister have an education? Can she work if she chose? If not, she could be using this TME, and plenty of financial aid, to get an education or trade and work when the kids are all school-aged. You should not have to make up for her and her husband's bad planning.